What happens when a poor housemaid with nothing to lose crosses paths with a wealthy man who thinks he can buy anything, even people's lives? Will revenge heal her pain or destroy them both? Hello friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, please let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? New York? London? Maybe South Africa or Jamaica? We want to know. In a big city filled with tall buildings and busy streets, there lived a man named Mr. Desmond Cole. Everyone knew his name. When people saw him driving his shiny black car through the streets, they pointed and whispered, "That's Mr. Cole, the millionaire." Mr. Desmond owned many companies. He built schools and gave money to hospitals. On television, reporters called him a hero. At charity events, he stood on stage wearing expensive suits, smiling his perfect smile as cameras flashed. "I believe in helping those who cannot help themselves," he would say, and everyone would clap. But behind closed doors, Mr. Desmond Cole was not the kind man people thought he was. He had secrets. Dark secrets that nobody knew about. His mansion stood on top of a hill, surrounded by tall iron gates and beautiful gardens. The house had 15 rooms, a swimming pool, and even a fountain in the front yard. Security guards stood at the gate day and night, making sure no strangers came close. Inside the mansion, everything was perfect. The floors were so clean they looked like mirrors. The furniture was made of the finest wood. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, sparkling like diamonds. But in that beautiful house, ugly things happened. Things that would make your heart break if you knew about them. One Monday morning, Mr. Desmond sat in his large office at home. Sunlight came through the tall windows, making his gold watch shine on his wrist. He was reading through some papers when his phone rang. "Hello?" he answered, his voice smooth and confident. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," said a woman's voice. "This is Mrs. Johnson from the employment agency. I have someone perfect for the maid position you requested." "Good," Mr. Desmond said, leaning back in his leather chair. "What's her name?" "Her name is Mary, sir. She's a young woman, very hardworking and respectful. She comes from a small town outside the city. She has excellent references." "Does she live alone?" Mr. Desmond asked. "Yes, sir. She has no family here in the city." A small smile appeared on Mr. Desmond's face. "Perfect. Send her tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." When Mr. Desmond hung up the phone, he stood and walked to the window. He looked out at his beautiful gardens, his expensive cars, his empire. He believed he could have anything he wanted. And anyone. What Mr. Desmond didn't know was that the young woman coming to work for him carried a secret inside her body. A secret that would change everything. A secret that would bring his whole perfect world crashing down. Meanwhile, in a small, cheap apartment across the city, Mary was packing her belongings into a worn-out bag. The apartment had cracked walls and a ceiling that leaked when it rained. But it was all she could afford. Mary was 22 years old, but her eyes looked older, tired. She had smooth brown skin and kept her hair tied back in a simple style. She wore plain clothes because she couldn't afford anything fancy. On the small table beside her bed sat a photograph in a broken frame. It showed two children smiling at the camera, a boy about 10 years old and a girl about 8. These were her younger brother and sister back in her hometown. Mary picked up the photo and held it close to her heart. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I'll take care of you. I promise." Her parents had died last year in a car accident. Since then, Mary became like a mother to her siblings. She sent them money every month for food, school fees, and clothes. An aunt was watching them, but Mary paid for everything. That's why she needed this new job so badly. 6 months ago, Mary went to a free health clinic because she wasn't feeling well. The doctor ran some tests and called her back to his office. She could still remember the way he looked at her, with sad eyes, like he was about to tell her terrible news. "I'm sorry, Mary," the doctor had said gently. "You're HIV positive." Mary felt like the world stopped spinning. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. "How?" she had asked, tears running down her face. I've only been with one person, my boyfriend. He told me he loved me. He promised we would get married." The doctor nodded sadly. "Many people get infected this way. Your boyfriend probably didn't tell you he was positive." "I'm very sorry." When Mary confronted her boyfriend, he denied everything and disappeared. She never saw him again. For weeks after that, Mary cried every night. She felt dirty. She felt broken. She thought about giving up. But then she remembered her brother and sister. They needed her. If she gave up, what would happen to them? So Mary dried her tears. She took her medicine every day. And she decided to keep fighting, keep working, keep surviving. She didn't tell anyone about her condition. Not even her aunt. She was too afraid of what people would say, how they would treat her. Now, as she zipped up her bag and prepared to go to Mr. Desmond Cole's mansion, Mary said a quiet prayer. God, please help me do this job well. Help me stay strong. Help me take care of my family. She didn't know that in just a few weeks she would need strength she never knew she had. She didn't know that the man she was going to work for was a monster wearing a mask. And she didn't know that her silence would become the weapon that would bring him down. The next morning, Mary woke up before the sun rose. She couldn't sleep well because she was nervous about her first day. She took a bath in the small bathroom, put on her best dress, a simple blue one with no holes, and said another prayer. At 7 o'clock, she left her apartment and took 2 buses to reach the rich neighborhood where Mr. Desmond Cole lived. As the bus got closer, the houses became bigger and bigger. The streets became cleaner. Fewer people walked on the sidewalks. When Mary finally stood in front of the mansion's gate at exactly 8 o'clock, her mouth opened in surprise. She had never seen such a huge house in her entire life. A security guard came to the gate. He was a big man with a serious face and a uniform that looked brand new. "What do you want?" he asked, looking at Mary's old dress and worn shoes. "Good morning, sir," Mary said politely. "My name is Mary. Mr. Cole is expecting me. I'm the new maid." The guard looked at her for a long moment, then picked up his phone and called someone. After a few seconds, he nodded and pressed a button. The big iron gate slowly opened. "Go straight to the front door," he said. "Someone will meet you there." "Thank you, sir," Mary said. As she walked up the long driveway, Mary felt like she was in a dream. The garden had flowers of every color: red, yellow, purple, pink. There were fountains with water dancing in the air. Birds sang in the trees. Everything was so beautiful and perfect. But somehow Mary felt cold inside. Something about this place made her uncomfortable, though she couldn't explain why. When she reached the front door, it opened before she could knock. A woman stood there, about 50 years old, wearing a black and white uniform. Her face was serious and tired looking. "You're Mary?" the woman asked. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Patricia. I'm the head housekeeper. I've worked here for 15 years. You'll report to me." Patricia's voice was not mean, but it wasn't friendly either. It was just empty, like she was very tired of something. "Yes, ma'am." "Thank you, ma'am. Come inside. Mr. Cole wants to meet you before you start work." Mary followed Patricia into the mansion. Her eyes grew wide as she looked around. The floor was made of shiny marble that reflected her face. A huge staircase curved up to the second floor. Paintings hung on the walls in golden frames. Everything sparkled and gleamed. "Don't touch anything unless you're cleaning it," Patricia warned. "And when you clean, be very careful. Everything in this house costs more than you'll earn in 10 years. Mary nodded, feeling smaller and smaller with each step. They walked through a long hallway and stopped at a large wooden door. Patricia knocked twice. "Come in," said a man's voice from inside. Patricia opened the door. "Mr. Cole, the new maid is here." "Excellent. Send her in." Patricia stepped aside and Mary entered the room. It was an office, but bigger than Mary's entire apartment. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. A huge desk sat in the center, and behind it sat Mr. Desmond Cole. He was a handsome man about 40 years old, with smooth dark skin and a perfectly trimmed beard. He wore a white shirt that probably cost more than all of Mary's clothes combined. When he smiled, his teeth were perfectly white. But Mary noticed something about his eyes. They were cold. When he smiled, his eyes didn't smile with his mouth. "Mary," he said, standing up and walking around his desk. "Welcome to my home." "Thank you, sir. I'm very grateful for this opportunity." Mary kept her eyes down, looking at the floor. "Look at me when I speak to you," Mr. Desmond said. His voice was still friendly, but there was something hard underneath it, like steel covered with silk. Mary lifted her eyes. "That's better," he said, studying her face carefully. "How old are you?" 22, sir." "And you're not married?" "No, sir." "Do you have a boyfriend?" Mary felt uncomfortable with this question, but she answered, "No, sir." "Good," Mr. Desmond said, still smiling. "I don't like drama in my house. Your job is simple. You'll clean, cook, wash clothes, and do whatever else needs to be done. Patricia will show you everything. You'll work from 5 in the morning until 9 at night, 6 days a week. Sundays you can rest. Your pay is $200 a month. I'll pay you at the end of each month if your work is good. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." Mr. Desmond walked closer to Mary. He was tall and she had to look up to see his face. He reached out and touched her chin, lifting her face up. Mary froze. Her heart started beating very fast. "You're a very pretty girl, Mary," he said softly. "Very pretty indeed." Mary didn't know what to say. She felt afraid, but she didn't know why. "I think you and I will get along just fine," Mr. Desmond continued. "As long as you're obedient and respectful." "Can you be obedient, Mary?" "Yes, sir," Mary whispered. "Good." He dropped his hand and stepped back. "Patricia will show you your room and explain your duties. You can go now." "Thank you, sir." Mary turned and walked quickly out of the office, her legs shaking. Outside the office, Patricia was waiting. She looked at Mary's face and shook her head slightly but said nothing. "Follow me," Patricia said. They walked through the mansion and Patricia showed Mary everything: the kitchen, the dining room, the living room, the bedrooms upstairs. There were 5 bedrooms, each one more beautiful than the last. "This is Mr. Cole's bedroom," Patricia said, opening a door. "You'll clean it every morning after he leaves for work at 7:30. Never enter this room when he's inside. Never touch his personal items. Just clean and leave quickly." "Yes, ma'am." "And this," Patricia said, opening another door, "is Madame Grace's bedroom. She's Mr. Cole's wife, but she travels most of the time. She's in Barbados right now and won't be back for 2 weeks. When she's here you must be very careful. She's difficult." Mary noticed that Patricia's voice changed when she talked about Madame Grace. There was fear in it. After showing Mary the whole house, Patricia led her outside behind the mansion. They walked to a small building near the back fence. It looked old and plain with paint peeling off the walls. "This is the servants' quarters," Patricia said. "You'll sleep here." She opened the door, and Mary saw a tiny room with a narrow bed, a small table, 1 chair, and a closet with no door. There was 1 window with bars on it. The walls were gray and had stains from water leaking. It was like going from a palace to a prison. "I know it's not much," Patricia said, and for the first time, her voice was gentle. "But it's better than sleeping on the street." "Thank you, ma'am." "It's fine," Mary said, though her heart sank. "Put your bag here. Then come to the kitchen. I'll teach you how Mr. Cole likes his meals prepared." Patricia turned to leave, but Mary called out softly, "Ma'am?" "Yes." "How long have you worked here?" 15 years. Is Mr. Cole a good man to work for?" Patricia stared at Mary for a long moment. Her face was like stone, showing no emotion. Then she said quietly, "Just do your work, keep your head down and don't ask questions. That's how you survive in this house." Then she walked away, leaving Mary alone in the small, cold room. Mary sat on the bed. It made a loud squeaking sound. She looked around at the gray walls, the bars on the window, the stains on the ceiling. She thought about Mr. Desmond's cold eyes and the way he had touched her chin. She thought about Patricia's warning, "That's how you survive in this house." Survive. Not live. Not work. Survive. What kind of place was this? Mary took out the photograph of her brother and sister and placed it on the small table. She looked at their smiling faces. "I'll be strong," she whispered. "For you I'll be strong." But deep inside, a small voice whispered a warning. A voice that said, "Run. Run away from this place before it's too late." Mary pushed that voice away. She couldn't run. She needed this job. Her family needed her. So she stood up, dried her eyes, and walked to the kitchen to begin her first day of work. She didn't know that in this beautiful mansion with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, a nightmare was waiting for her. A nightmare that would test everything she believed about survival, justice, and revenge. Mary's first few days at the mansion were exhausting. She woke up every morning at 5 o'clock even before the sun came up. Her body was always tired, but she couldn't rest. There was too much work to do. Patricia taught her how to clean each room perfectly. "Mr. Cole notices everything," Patricia warned. "If you miss even 1 spot of dust, he'll see it." Mary learned to cook Mr. Desmond's breakfast exactly the way he liked it. Scrambled eggs with cheese, toast with butter on only one side, fresh orange juice with no pulp, and black coffee with 2 spoons of sugar. She learned to fold his clothes in a special way. She learned to arrange his office so that every pen, every paper, every book was in exactly the right place. Every morning, Mary cleaned the entire mansion. She swept, mopped, dusted, and polished until everything shined. Her hands became rough and red from all the cleaning chemicals. Her back hurt from bending over. Her feet ached from standing all day. But she never complained. She thought about her brother and sister back home and she kept working. Patricia watched her carefully during those first days. One afternoon, while they were washing dishes together in the kitchen, Patricia spoke quietly. "You're a hard worker," she said. "I can see that." "Thank you, ma'am," Mary replied, scrubbing a pot. "But hard work isn't always enough in this house." Patricia's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Be careful, Mary. Very careful." Mary looked at her. "Careful of what, ma'am?" Patricia glanced toward the door, making sure no one was listening. "Mr. Cole is not the man everyone thinks he is. He's done things. Bad things." "What kind of things?" Mary asked, her heart beating faster. But before Patricia could answer, they heard footsteps coming down the hallway. Patricia quickly went back to washing dishes, her face becoming blank again, showing no emotion. Mr. Desmond walked into the kitchen. He was dressed in an expensive gray suit, ready to go to work. "Good morning, sir," both women said together. "Good morning," he replied, but he was only looking at Mary. "Mary, I need you to come to my office before I leave. I want to give you some instructions." "Yes, sir," Mary said, drying her hands on a towel. She followed him out of the kitchen and down the long hallway to his office. When they entered, he closed the door behind them. The sound of the door closing made Mary nervous. "Sit down," Mr. Desmond said, pointing to a chair in front of his desk. Mary sat, keeping her hands folded in her lap. Mr. Desmond didn't sit behind his desk. Instead, he sat on the edge of it, right in front of Mary, very close to her. Too close. "You've been working here for almost a week now," he said. "How do you like it?" "It's good, sir. Thank you for the opportunity." "Are the other workers treating you well? Is Patricia being nice to you?" "Yes, sir. Everyone is very kind." "Good, good." He smiled, but again his eyes remained cold. "You know, Mary, I'm a very generous man. When people work hard for me, I reward them. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "Yes, sir. I'll continue to work very hard." "I'm sure you will." He reached out and touched her shoulder. His hand stayed there, heavy and warm. "You're a beautiful young woman, Mary. Very beautiful. Has anyone ever told you that?" Mary felt her body go stiff. She wanted to move away, but she was afraid. This was her boss. If she made him angry, she would lose her job. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly, looking down at the floor. "Look at me," he said. She lifted her eyes. "That's better. You have very pretty eyes." His hand moved from her shoulder to her cheek. "Do you know why I chose you for this job, Mary?" Because I'm a hard worker, sir?" He laughed softly. "Well, yes, but also because I could tell you were special, different from other girls." Mary's heart was pounding so hard she thought he could hear it. "I take care of the people who work for me," Mr. Desmond continued, "especially the ones I like. And I like you, Mary. I like you very much." Just then there was a knock on the door. Mr. Desmond's hand dropped immediately. His friendly expression disappeared, replaced by an annoyed look. "What is it?" he called out sharply. The door opened and Patricia stood there. "I'm sorry to disturb you, sir, but your driver is here. You have a meeting at 9 o'clock. Yes, I'm coming." He stood up and grabbed his briefcase from the desk. Then he looked back at Mary. "We'll continue this conversation later. You can go now." Mary stood up so fast she almost knocked over the chair. She walked quickly out of the office, her legs shaking. In the hallway, Patricia was waiting. She looked at Mary's face and knew something had happened. "Are you okay?" Patricia asked quietly. Mary nodded, but tears were forming in her eyes. "Come," Patricia said. "Let's go to the kitchen. I'll make you some tea." They sat at the small table in the corner of the kitchen. Patricia poured hot tea into 2 cups and pushed one toward Mary. "Drink," she said gently. Mary took a sip. The warm tea helped calm her shaking hands. "He touched you, didn't he?" Patricia asked. Mary looked up, surprised. "How did you know?" Patricia's face was sad. "Because he's done it before. Many times. To many girls." "What do you mean?" Patricia looked toward the door again, making sure they were alone. Then she spoke very quietly, almost in a whisper. "You're not the first maid to work here, Mary. There have been others before you. Many others. Young girls just like you. Poor girls who needed money and had nowhere else to go. What happened to them?" Mary asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "Mr. Cole, he starts slowly. First he compliments you. Then he touches you, just small touches at first, like on your shoulder or your hand. Then the touches become more. He gives you extra money. He tells you that you're special. And then..." Patricia stopped talking. She took a sip of her tea, and Mary saw that her hands were shaking too. "Then what?" Mary whispered. "Then he forces you to do things. Things you don't want to do. And if you refuse, he fires you. He throws you out without paying you anything. And he makes sure you can never get another job in this city. Mary felt like she couldn't breathe. But what about his wife? Doesn't she know? Madame Grace? Patricia laughed bitterly. She's never here. She's always traveling, Europe, Asia, America. She spends his money and enjoys her life. She doesn't care what happens in this house as long as she gets to keep living like a queen. Why don't the girls report him to the police? Patricia shook her head. Who would believe them? Mr. Cole is rich and powerful. He knows judges, police officers, government officials. The girls who worked here were all poor, with no education, no money, no family to protect them. When they tried to speak up, no one listened. Some of them just disappeared. Disappeared? Mary's voice was barely a whisper now. They left the city. Or maybe something worse happened to them. I don't know. Patricia looked at Mary with tired, sad eyes. I'm telling you this because I can see you're a good girl. You remind me of my own daughter. I don't want what happened to them to happen to you. Mary felt tears running down her face. What should I do? I need this job. My brother and sister are depending on me. Patricia reached across the table and held Mary's hand. I know, child. I know. That's why we stay. That's why we suffer. Because we have people depending on us. She paused. Just try to avoid being alone with him. When he calls you to his office, try to bring something, tea, water, papers, so you have an excuse to leave quickly. And if he does something, don't fight too hard. It only makes him angry, and when he's angry, he's dangerous. Mary pulled her hand away. Are you telling me to just let him do whatever he wants? I'm telling you to survive, Patricia said firmly. That's all any of us can do in this house. Survive. Mary stood up from the table. She felt angry, scared, and helpless all at once. No, she said quietly. There has to be another way. There isn't, Patricia said sadly. I've been here 15 years, Mary. I've seen girls try to fight him. I've seen girls try to run. I've seen girls try to report him. Nothing works. He always wins. Mary wiped her tears and took a deep breath. Then I'll do what you said. I'll be careful. I'll avoid him. And I'll save enough money to leave this place as soon as I can. Patricia nodded. That's smart. Keep your head down, do your work, and don't attract his attention. But even as Mary said those words, she knew it would be impossible. She had already attracted Mr. Desmond's attention. And from the way he looked at her, from the way he touched her, she knew he wasn't going to leave her alone. That evening, after finishing all her work, Mary returned to her small room behind the mansion. She was so tired her whole body hurt. She lay down on the squeaky bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about Patricia's words, just try to survive. She thought about the other girls who had worked here before her. Where were they now? Were they okay? Or had something terrible happened to them? She thought about Mr. Desmond's cold eyes and his heavy hand on her shoulder. And she thought about the secret she carried in her body, the HIV in her blood. God, she whispered into the darkness, please protect me. Please help me. I don't know what to do. But the small room was silent. No answer came. Mary closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. She just lay there in the dark, listening to the sounds of the night, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. Tomorrow would come. And the day after that. And she would have to wake up and face Mr. Desmond Cole again. All she could do was hope that Patricia was wrong. Hope that if she worked hard and stayed quiet, he would leave her alone. But deep in her heart, Mary knew that hope was probably just a dream. The nightmare was only beginning. 2 weeks passed. Mary tried her best to follow Patricia's advice. Whenever Mr. Desmond called her to his office, she always brought something with her. A tray of coffee, some papers, a cleaning cloth, anything that gave her an excuse to leave quickly. But it was getting harder. Mr. Desmond found more and more reasons to call her. Mary, come help me organize these files. Mary, I spilled something on my shirt, bring me a new one. Mary, I need you to stay late tonight to clean my office. Each time he stood too close. Each time his hands found a reason to touch her, her arm, her back, her waist. Each time his compliments became more personal. You smell nice today, Mary. That dress looks beautiful on you. You have such soft skin. Mary felt like a mouse being watched by a snake. She could feel him getting closer and closer, tightening the trap around her. But she had nowhere to run. She sent money home to her siblings every week. Her little brother wrote her letters thanking her for the school supplies she bought him. Her little sister sent her drawings with, I love you written in crayon. These letters were the only things that kept Mary going. On the 15th day, everything changed. It was a Thursday evening. Most of the other workers had already gone home. Patricia had left early because her daughter was sick. The cook had finished preparing dinner and left. The gardener was done for the day. Mary was in the kitchen washing the dinner dishes when she heard his voice behind her. "Mary." She jumped, startled. She hadn't heard him come in. "Yes, sir?" She turned around, keeping the sink between them. "Come to my office. I need to discuss something important with you." Mary's heart started racing. "Can it wait until tomorrow, sir? I'm almost finished with the dishes." "Now, Mary." His voice was firm. "The dishes can wait." She had no choice. She dried her hands and followed him through the empty mansion. Their footsteps echoed in the silent hallways. The house suddenly felt very big and very empty. When they reached his office, he held the door open for her. Mary walked in and he closed the door behind them. The sound of that door closing was like the sound of a prison cell locking. "Sit down," he said. Mary sat in the chair in front of his desk, her hands gripping the armrests tightly. But Mr. Desmond didn't go behind his desk this time. He walked over to the door and locked it. The click of the lock made Mary's blood run cold. "Sir, why are you locking the door?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Because we need privacy for this conversation," he said, walking toward her slowly. "I don't want anyone interrupting us." What do you want to talk about, sir?" He stood in front of her, looking down at her with those cold eyes. "I think you know Mary. I think you've known for weeks." "I don't understand, sir." "Don't play stupid with me." His voice was no longer friendly. It was hard now, threatening. "I've been very patient with you. Very generous. I gave you this job when no one else would hire you. I pay you good money. I treat you well. And now it's time for you to show your gratitude." Mary stood up from the chair, her legs shaking. "Sir, I am grateful. I work very hard. I do everything you ask." "Not everything," he interrupted. He took a step closer. "There's one thing I've been asking for and you keep avoiding it. Please, sir, I just want to do my job and—" "Your job," he said, his voice rising, "is to do whatever I tell you to do. I own this house. I pay your salary. That means I own you." "No," Mary said, backing away. "You don't own me. I'm a person, not property." Mr. Desmond laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. It was cold and cruel. "A person? You're nothing, Mary. You're a poor girl from nowhere with no education and no future. Without me, you'd be begging on the streets. You should be grateful that a man like me even looks at you." Tears started falling from Mary's eyes. "Please, sir. Please don't do this. I need this job, but not like this. Please." "You need this job?" He smiled. "Then stop being difficult. It's simple, Mary. You do what I want and you keep getting paid. You keep refusing me and I'll throw you out of here with nothing. No money, no recommendation letter, nothing. You'll never work in this city again. What will happen to your little brother and sister then?" Mary froze. "How do you know about my brother and sister?" "I know everything about you," he said. "I know you send them money every week. I know they're depending on you. I know you're all they have left." He moved closer, backing her against the wall. "So you see, Mary, you don't really have a choice. If you want to keep helping your family, you'll do what I say." Mary was trapped. Her back was against the wall, and Mr. Desmond stood in front of her, blocking her escape. "I'm not a bad man," he continued, his voice becoming softer, more persuasive. "I'll take care of you. I'll give you extra money. Nice clothes. Maybe even a better room. All you have to do is be cooperative." He reached out and touched her face. His hand was cold. Mary closed her eyes. She thought about her options. If she refused, he would fire her. She would have no money. Her brother and sister would suffer. They might have to leave school. They might go hungry. But if she agreed, if she let him do what he wanted, she would have to live with that shame forever. "Please," she whispered one more time. "Please don't make me do this." "Shoo," Mr. Desmond said, putting his finger on her lips. "Stop fighting. This will be easier if you just cooperate." His hands grabbed her arms roughly. Mary tried to push him away, but he was too strong. "No, please." "No," she cried out. "Shut up," he hissed. "No one can hear you. No one is here. And even if they were, do you think anyone would help you? You're just a maid, Mary. Nobody cares about you." Mary tried to scream, but he covered her mouth with his hand. She struggled, kicking and pushing, but it was useless. He pushed her down onto the leather couch in his office. "Stop fighting," he growled. "You're only making this harder on yourself." Tears streamed down Mary's face. She felt helpless, powerless. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But it was real. Every terrible second of it was real. Mr. Desmond forced himself on her while she cried silently, her body frozen in shock and fear. She stared at the ceiling, at the expensive chandelier hanging above them, sparkling and beautiful. Everything in this room was beautiful, the paintings on the walls, the books on the shelves, the soft carpet on the floor. But ugliness was happening here. Evil was happening here. When it was finally over, Mr. Desmond stood up and straightened his clothes as if nothing had happened. He walked to his desk and pulled out his wallet. He took out 5 $20 bills and threw them on the couch next to Mary. "Buy yourself something nice," he said casually. "And clean yourself up before you leave this room. I don't want the security guard seeing you like this and getting the wrong idea." Mary couldn't move. She couldn't speak. She just lay there crying silently. He smiled at her, that same charming smile he showed to everyone in public, and walked out, leaving the door open behind him. Mary lay on the couch for a long time, unable to move. Her whole body hurt. Her heart hurt even more. She looked at the $100 lying next to her. Money. He thought he could pay her and make everything okay. He thought he could by her silence, by her shame, by her soul. Finally, Mary forced herself to sit up. Her hands were shaking as she fixed her dress and wiped her tears. She stood on wobbly legs and walked to the bathroom attached to the office. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her face was wet with tears. She looked broken. "I am not broken," she whispered to her reflection. But even as she said it, she felt like a lie. She washed her face with cold water, trying to erase the evidence of what had happened. But some things couldn't be washed away. Mary left the office and walked through the dark, empty mansion. Every step hurt. Every breath hurt. When she finally reached her small room behind the house, she locked the door and collapsed on her bed. And then she cried. She cried like she had never cried before, deep, painful sobs that came from the deepest part of her soul. She thought about calling the police. But Patricia's words echoed in her mind. "He knows judges, police officers, government officials. No one will believe you." She thought about running away. But where would she go? And what about her brother and sister who needed her? She thought about dying. Just ending everything. It would be so much easier than facing another day in this nightmare. But then she looked at the photograph on her table, her little brother and sister smiling at the camera, trusting her to take care of them. "No," Mary said through her tears. "I won't give up. Not yet." She reached for her phone with trembling hands, but then she stopped. What good would calling anyone do? Who would believe her? Who would help her? She put the phone down and just lay there in the darkness, crying until she had no more tears left. Mary lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her body still aching, her heart still breaking. Tomorrow she would have to wake up and face him again. And the day after that. And the day after that. She didn't know how she would survive this. But she had to. For her brother and sister. For the family that needed her. That was the only thought that kept her going. The next 3 weeks were the darkest period of Mary's life. With Madame Grace away in Europe, Mr. Desmond had complete control of the house. And he used Mary whenever he wanted. Sometimes it was during the day when all the other workers had left for their break. He would call her to his office or his bedroom and she would have to go. Sometimes it was at night when the mansion was dark and quiet. He would knock on her door and she would have to open it. Mary stopped resisting. What was the point? Fighting only made him angry, and when he was angry he was rougher, more cruel. So she learned to simply endure. She would close her eyes and think about her brother and sister. She would imagine she was somewhere else. Back in her village, under the mango tree where she used to play as a child. Anywhere but here. Anywhere but in this nightmare. Mr. Desmond gave her money after each time. Sometimes $50, sometimes $100. He would throw the bills at her like she was a thing he had purchased, not a person. "You're doing well," he would say with that cold smile. "See? This arrangement works for both of us. You get paid, I get what I want. Everybody's happy." But Mary wasn't happy. She was dying inside piece by piece. The other workers noticed the change in Mary. She stopped smiling. She barely spoke. She moved through the mansion like a ghost, doing her work mechanically, her eyes empty. Patricia tried to talk to her several times. "Mary, please talk to me. Let me help you." But Mary just shook her head. "There's nothing to talk about. I'm fine." "You're not fine, child. I can see it in your eyes." "Then stop looking at my eyes," Mary said quietly and walked away. The cook noticed too. "That girl is wasting away," she told Patricia one afternoon. "She barely eats anything. And have you seen how thin she's getting?" "I've tried talking to her," Patricia said sadly. "But she won't open up. She's locked everything inside." "Poor thing," the cook said, shaking her head. Working in this house, it changes people. Breaks them. When Madame Grace finally returned from Europe, she noticed something was different in her house. Madame Grace was a tall, elegant woman with smooth skin and expensive clothes. She wore diamond earrings and carried designer handbags. She looked like a queen and she expected to be treated like one. On her first morning back, Mary served her breakfast in the dining room. As Mary poured the coffee, Madame Grace studied her face. "You're the new maid?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. My name is Mary. How long have you been working here?" "Almost 2 months, ma'am." Madame Grace took a sip of her coffee, still watching Mary. "You look sad. Is something wrong?" Mary's hand trembled slightly as she set down the coffee pot. "No, ma'am. Everything is fine." Madame Grace didn't look convinced. "My husband treats you well?" Mary's throat tightened. She couldn't speak, so she just nodded. "Good," Madame Grace said, turning her attention to her breakfast. "You may go." Mary hurried out of the room, her heart pounding. For a moment she had almost told the truth. She had almost said, "Your husband is a monster. He's been hurting me every day while you were gone." But what good would that do? Madame Grace probably wouldn't believe her. Or worse, she might believe her and blame Mary for it. So Mary stayed silent. But having Madame Grace back in the house didn't stop Mr. Desmond. He just became more careful. He would send Mary text messages. "Come to my office at 2 p.m. Tell Patricia you're running errands for me." Or, "Meet me at the Royal Hotel on 5th Street tomorrow at noon. Room 305. Don't be late." Yes, now he was taking her to hotels. Expensive hotels where nobody would recognize them. He would check in under a fake name and Mary would have to meet him in the room. "This is better," he told her during one of these meetings. "More privacy. And the beds are more comfortable." He laughed at his own joke. Mary said nothing. She just stood there waiting for it to be over so she could leave. "You know," Mr. Desmond said, counting out money to give her, "you could act a little happier. Some girls would kill to be in your position. I'm a millionaire, Mary. I could have any woman I want. You should feel special." Special. The word made Mary want to laugh, or cry. She felt many things, but special wasn't one of them. She felt dirty, used, broken, dead inside. After each hotel meeting, Mr. Desmond would hand her cash and say, "Buy yourself something nice. Get your hair done. You should take better care of yourself." Mary would take the money, put it in her bag, and leave without a word. The money was good. More than her regular salary. She sent most of it home to her siblings, keeping just enough for her medicine and basic needs. Her little brother wrote her letters. "Thank you for the money, sister. I bought new school shoes and the teacher said I'm doing very well in math." Her little sister drew pictures. "This is you and me holding hands. I miss you. When are you coming home?" These letters were the only light in Mary's dark world. They reminded her why she was enduring this hell. Why she got up every morning and faced another day. For them. Everything was for them. But even that wasn't enough to save Mary from herself. She stopped eating properly. Food tasted like nothing. She would force herself to eat a little, just enough to survive, but she had no appetite. She stopped sleeping well. Nightmares haunted her every night. She would wake up crying, her heart racing, feeling Mr. Desmond's hands on her even though he wasn't there. She stopped taking care of herself. Her hair became dull. Her skin looked dry. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. And worst of all, she stopped taking her HIV medication regularly. The doctor had told her, "You must take these pills every single day at the same time. If you miss doses, the virus will get stronger and the medicine will stop working." But some days Mary was so tired, so broken that she just forgot. Or she didn't care. What did it matter anyway? What was the point of staying healthy in a life that felt like death? One afternoon, about 2 months after Madame Grace returned, something shifted in Mary. Mr. Desmond had sent her a text message. "Royal Hotel. Room 305. 2 p.m. today." Mary stared at the message. She was so tired. So tired of this. So tired of being used. So tired of pretending everything was okay. She made a decision. When 2 p.m. came, Mary didn't go to the hotel. She stayed in the kitchen, helping Patricia prepare dinner, her hands shaking as she chopped vegetables. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Mr. Desmond. "Where are you?" She ignored it. 5 minutes later. "Mary, I'm waiting. Don't make me angry." She turned off her phone. At 6 o'clock, when Mr. Desmond returned home from work, his face was dark with rage. He found Mary in the kitchen and said in a calm, cold voice, "Mary, come to my office. Now." Patricia looked at Mary with worried eyes. Mary put down the dish she was washing and followed Mr. Desmond. In his office he closed the door and turned to face her. His eyes were ice cold. "Why didn't you come to the hotel?" he asked quietly. I couldn't, sir. I was busy with work." "Busy?" He stepped closer. "You were too busy to do what I told you to do?" "Sir, please, I just needed a break. Just one day." "A break?" His voice rose. "You think you can tell me no? You think you have that right?" "I'm not a machine, sir," Mary said, and she was surprised by the strength in her own voice. "I'm a person. I can't keep doing this." Mr. Desmond's face twisted with anger. "Oh, so now you're refusing me? After all I've done for you? After all the money I've given you?" "You didn't give me anything," Mary said, tears starting to fall. "You paid me to stay silent about what you were doing to me. That's not a gift. That's guilt money." Mr. Desmond's hand moved so fast that Mary didn't see it coming. He slapped her across the face hard. Mary stumbled backward, her hand going to her burning cheek. "How dare you?" he hissed. "How dare you speak to me like that? You ungrateful little—" "I'm not ungrateful," Mary said, crying now. "I'm just tired. Please, sir, just let me do my work. Just let me be a maid. That's all I want." "Too late for that," Mr. Desmond said coldly. "You had your chance to cooperate. You had your chance to make this easy. But you chose to disrespect me. So now you're fired." Mary's heart stopped. "What? You're fired? Pack your things and get out of my house. Tonight." But my salary, you owe me for this month." "You get nothing," he said. "You broke our agreement. You refused to do what I asked. So you get nothing. Now get out before I call the police and have you arrested for trespassing." "Arrested? But I work here. I've done nothing wrong." Mr. Desmond smiled cruelly. "Haven't you? I could tell the police you've been stealing from me. Who do you think they'll believe? A millionaire businessman, or a poor maid with no education?" Mary stared at him in horror. He would do it. He would lie to the police and they would believe him, not her. She had no power, no voice, no rights. She was exactly what he had called her from the beginning. Nothing. "Get out," Mr. Desmond said, pointing to the door. "Now." Mary stumbled out of the office in shock. Patricia was waiting in the hallway, having heard the raised voices. "Mary, what happened?" "He fired me," Mary said, her voice barely a whisper. "He's throwing me out. Without paying me." "Oh no," Patricia breathed. "Oh Mary, I'm so sorry." "I need to pack," Mary said mechanically, walking toward the back door. In her small room, Mary threw her few belongings into her bag. Her clothes, her toothbrush, the photograph of her brother and sister. She looked around the tiny room that had been her home for 3 months. 3 months of hell. Patricia appeared at the door, pressing some money into Mary's hand. "It's not much. Just $100. It's all I have. Please take it." "Thank you," Mary whispered, unable to look at Patricia's kind face without crying harder. "Where will you go?" "I don't know. Do you have anywhere to stay?" "No." Patricia hugged her tightly. "I'm so sorry, child. I'm so sorry this happened to you. That man is evil. Pure evil." When Mary left the mansion that night, walking through the iron gates for the last time, she felt like her life was over. She had no job, no money, no home. She had been used, abused, and thrown away like garbage. She walked the dark streets, her bag over her shoulder, with nowhere to go. She finally found a bus stop and sat down on the bench, crying in the darkness. "He destroyed my life," Mary whispered into the empty night. "He took everything from me. My dignity, my hope, my future. He used me and threw me away like I'm nothing." She looked up at the sky, at the stars shining coldly above the city. And something changed inside her. The sadness, the brokenness, the fear, all of it began to transform into something else. Anger. Cold, hard, burning anger. "He destroyed my life," she said again, but this time her voice was different, stronger. "But I'll make him pay. I don't know how yet. I don't know when. But I swear. I'll make him pay for what he did to me." In that moment, sitting alone on a bus stop bench with everything she owned in a single bag, Mary stopped being a victim. She became something else. Someone who had nothing left to lose. And that made her dangerous. Mary spent that night in a cheap motel on the edge of the city. The room smelled like cigarettes and mold. The bed had stains on it. The bathroom sink dripped water all night long, making a steady drip, drip, drip sound that kept her awake. But Mary barely noticed any of it. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, her mind racing. She counted the money she had. Patricia's $100, plus about $80 she had saved. $180 total. That was all she had in the world. It wouldn't last long. The motel room cost $30 a night. Food would cost more. And she still needed to send money to her brother and sister. What was she going to do? She thought about going back to her village, back to her siblings. But how could she face them with no money, no job, no future? She had promised to take care of them. If she went back empty-handed, what would happen to them? She thought about finding another job in the city. But Mr. Desmond had connections everywhere. If she tried to work at another rich person's house, he might find out and ruin it for her. Mary lay down on the dirty bed and closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she thought seriously about her HIV status. She had been so busy surviving Mr. Desmond's abuse that she had stopped thinking about her health. She had missed many doses of her medication. That was dangerous. Very dangerous. What if she got sick? What if the virus got stronger because she hadn't been taking her medicine properly? And then, in the darkness of that dirty motel room, a thought came to Mary. A terrible, dark thought. Mr. Desmond had forced himself on her many times. He never used protection. He had laughed about it once, saying, "I'm clean. I'm careful about these things. You should feel honored." But Mary wasn't clean. Mary had HIV. And if Mr. Desmond had been forcing himself on her all those times without protection, Mary sat up suddenly, her heart pounding. Could she have infected him? The thought should have made her feel guilty. But instead she felt something else. Something she hadn't felt in months. Power. For the first time since this nightmare began, Mary had something that Mr. Desmond didn't know about. A secret. A weapon. She thought about all the pain he had caused her. All the times he had used her and thrown money at her like she was nothing. All the times he had smiled his cold smile and told her she should be grateful. He had destroyed her life. But maybe without even knowing it, she had destroyed his too. The next morning, Mary woke up with a plan forming in her mind. She couldn't just disappear. She couldn't just let Mr. Desmond win. She couldn't let him continue living his perfect life while she suffered on the streets. No, she would go back. Not as a victim. Not as someone begging for mercy. She would go back as someone with nothing left to lose. And people with nothing to lose are the most dangerous people in the world. Mary used some of her precious money to buy a new dress from a thrift store. Nothing fancy, just something clean and decent. She washed her face, combed her hair, and tried to make herself look presentable. Then she took a bus back to the mansion. It was 3 weeks later when Mary returned. 3 weeks of living in that dirty motel, 3 weeks of thinking and planning, 3 weeks of her anger growing colder and harder. When she arrived at the iron gates, the security guard looked surprised to see her. "Mary? I thought you left." Almost emotionless. "I came back because I have a plan." "I did," Mary said quietly. "But I need to see Mr. Cole. Please. It's important." The guard looked uncertain. "I don't know if he wants to see you," he said. "Please," Mary interrupted. "Just call him. Tell him I'm here. Tell him I want to apologize." The word apologize did the trick. The guard picked up his phone and called the main house. After a few moments, he hung up and looked at Mary with something like pity in his eyes. "He says you can come in. But he says if you cause any trouble, I'm to call the police immediately." "I won't cause any trouble," Mary said. "I promise." The gate opened and Mary walked up the long driveway once again. But this time she was different. Her steps were steadier. Her eyes were clearer. This time she knew exactly what she was doing. Mr. Desmond was waiting for her at the front door, his arms crossed, a smirk on his face. Well, well, well," he said. "Look who came crawling back. I knew you would. I told you, you can't survive without me." Mary stopped a few feet away from him and lowered her head, playing the part of a defeated, desperate woman. "Please, sir," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I was wrong to refuse you. I was stupid. Please, please give me back my job. I'll do anything." Mr. Desmond laughed. "Anything? That's a big word, Mary." "I mean it, sir. I've been on the streets for 3 weeks. I have nowhere to go. No money. No food. I was wrong. You were right about everything. I need you. Please." She could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He loved this. Loved seeing her broken and begging. He said, pretending to think about it. "I don't know, Mary. You disrespected me. You embarrassed me. Why should I give you another chance?" "Because I'll be good now," Mary said, forcing herself to look up at him with pleading eyes. "I understand now. I understand what you were trying to teach me. I'll do whatever you want. Just please let me work here again." Mr. Desmond stepped closer and lifted her chin with his finger, just like he had done on her first day. You've learned your lesson, have you? Yes, sir. And you'll be obedient from now on? No more refusing me? Mary's stomach turned, but she nodded. Yes, sir. I'll be obedient. Good, he said, smiling. Very good. I'm glad you finally understand how things work in the real world. Power is everything, Mary. And I have all the power. Or so you think, Mary thought to herself. But out loud she just said, Yes, sir. You're right, sir. You can have your job back, Mr. Desmond said. But not as a regular maid. Those positions are filled. You'll work as my personal assistant. You'll come when I call. You'll go where I tell you. And you'll do whatever I ask. Understood? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And your salary will be $300 a month now. See, I'm generous to those who cooperate with me. $300. Blood money. Money to buy her silence and her body. But Mary took it. Because money wasn't the point anymore. Revenge was the point. Thank you, sir, she said again. You're very kind. I know I am, Mr. Desmond said. Now go to your old room and settle in. I'll call you later tonight. My wife is having dinner with her friends, so we'll have the house to ourselves. Yes, sir. Mary walked to her small room behind the mansion. When she closed the door, she sat on the squeaky bed and took a deep breath. She had done it. She was back inside. Patricia found her there a few minutes later. The older woman's face showed shock and worry. Mary, you came back? What? After what he did to you? Mary looked at Patricia with eyes that were different now, harder, colder. Because I'm not finished yet, Mary said quietly. What do you mean? I mean he thinks he won. He thinks he broke me. But he's wrong. Mary's voice was calm, almost emotionless. I came back because I have a plan. A plan? Patricia looked frightened. Mary, please don't do anything dangerous. That man is powerful. He can destroy you. He already destroyed me, Mary said. I have nothing left to lose. But him? He has everything to lose. His reputation, his businesses, his perfect life. What are you going to do? Mary pulled out her old phone from her bag. I'm going to gather evidence. Every time he calls me, every time he uses me, I'm going to record it. His voice, his threats, everything. And when I have enough proof, I'm going to expose him. Patricia shook her head. Mary, even with evidence, who will believe you? He's too powerful. Maybe, Mary said. But I have to try. I can't just let him keep doing this to other girls. You said I'm not the first. How many others were there before me? How many others will there be after me if someone doesn't stop him? Patricia sat down on the bed next to Mary, tears in her eyes. You're very brave. Or very foolish. Maybe both. Probably both, Mary agreed. But I can't live with myself if I don't at least try. What about your brother and sister? Mary's face softened a little. I'll send them money like I always do. They don't need to know what I'm going through. And when this is all over, when I've brought Mr. Desmond down, maybe I can finally go home to them and be proud of myself again. Patricia hugged her. Be careful, child. Please be very, very careful. I will, Mary promised. But as Patricia left and Mary sat alone in her room, she knew that what she was about to do was anything but careful. It was dangerous. It was risky. It could backfire completely. But Mary didn't care anymore. She had been to hell and back. She had been broken and humiliated. She had lost everything, her dignity, her health, her hope. The only thing she had left was her anger. And she was going to use that anger to make Mr. Desmond Cole pay for every single thing he had done to her. That night, when Mr. Desmond called her to his bedroom, Mary went with her phone hidden in her pocket, the recording app already running. I'm glad you came back, Mr. Desmond said, pouring himself a glass of expensive whiskey. I missed you, Mary. The other girls just aren't the same. Mary's blood ran cold. Other girls? There were other girls right now. But she said nothing. She just stood there playing her part. You know, Mr. Desmond continued, walking toward her, I could have any woman I want. But there's something about you, Mary. Something vulnerable. It's exciting. He reached out and touched her face. Mary forced herself not to flinch. Are you going to be good tonight? He asked. Yes, sir, Mary whispered. Good. Because if you refuse me again, I won't just fire you this time. I'll make sure you never work anywhere in this city. I have connections everywhere, Mary. Everywhere. Don't forget that. The recording captured every word. What happened next was horrible, just like it had been all the times before. But this time, Mary endured it with a purpose. This time, every moment of pain was being documented. Every cruel word was being saved. When it was over, Mr. Desmond threw money at her as usual, this time $200. You did well, he said, already getting dressed. See how easy it is when you cooperate? We'll do this again soon. Maybe tomorrow at the Royal Hotel. I'll text you the details. Yes, sir, Mary said, gathering the money with shaking hands. As she walked back to her room, Mary felt sick to her stomach. But she also felt something else. Oh, one recording. That was just the beginning. There would be more. Many more. And piece by piece, recording by recording, Mary was building the case that would destroy Mr. Desmond Cole. She didn't know yet that there was another bomb waiting to explode, one that had nothing to do with recordings or evidence. The virus in her blood. The HIV that she had stopped treating properly. The infection that she might have already passed to him. That bomb was ticking. And when it finally went off, it would destroy both of them in ways neither of them could imagine. Over the next 6 weeks, Mary became two different people. In front of Mr. Desmond, she was the obedient, quiet girl who did whatever he asked. She went to hotels when he called. She met him in his office late at night. She never complained. She never refused. But alone in her room, she was someone else entirely. She was a hunter, collecting evidence, building her case piece by piece. Her phone now held 12 recordings. 12 times Mr. Desmond's voice had been captured saying terrible things. You belong to me, Mary. Don't ever forget that. If you tell anyone about us, I'll destroy your entire family. I know where your brother and sister live. You should be grateful I'm paying you. Most men wouldn't even give you money for this. Stop crying. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Each recording was a knife that Mary was sharpening, preparing for the moment when she would strike. But the recordings weren't the only evidence Mary was gathering. She also saved every text message Mr. Desmond sent her. Messages like, Royal Hotel, room 412, 2 p.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. Bring that blue dress I bought you. I want to see you wear it. My wife is going shopping today. Come to my office at noon. Mary also kept every dollar bill he gave her, storing them in an envelope hidden under her mattress. She wrote the date on each envelope. October 15th, $150. October 22nd, $200. October 29th, $100. This was evidence too. Evidence that he was paying her to stay silent. And there was one more thing. Mary started taking pictures, not of herself or Mr. Desmond, but of the hotels, the outside of the buildings, the room numbers, the dates and times stamped by her phone's camera. She was building a timeline, a map of his crimes. Patricia watched all of this with growing worry. Mary, please be careful, she would whisper whenever they were alone in the kitchen. If he finds out what you're doing. He won't, Mary said calmly. He thinks I'm broken. He thinks I've given up. That's exactly what I want him to think. But what will you do with all this evidence? I don't know yet, Mary admitted. I'm waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, something else was happening that Mary didn't know about. Mr. Desmond was getting sick. It started small. He felt tired more often. He had headaches that wouldn't go away. He started losing weight even though he was eating the same amount of food. At first he ignored it. He was a busy man with many companies to run. Of course he was tired. But then other symptoms appeared. A rash on his arms. Night sweats that soaked his sheets. A cough that wouldn't go away. One morning, Madame Grace noticed him looking pale at breakfast. Desmond, are you feeling all right? She asked. You don't look well. I'm fine, he said irritably. Just working too hard. Maybe you should see a doctor. I don't need a doctor. I just need less stress and more rest. But the symptoms didn't go away. They got worse. Mr. Desmond started missing important business meetings. He would cancel appointments at the last minute because he felt too weak to get out of bed. His business partners started to worry. His employees whispered among themselves. Even the security guard at the mansion noticed that Mr. Cole looked different, thinner, paler, weaker. But Mr. Desmond refused to see a doctor. He was too proud. Too convinced that he was invincible. I'm fine, he kept saying. It's just stress. It will pass. During this time, Mary noticed the changes in him too. When he called her to his bedroom, his hands shook slightly. When they met at hotels, he seemed less energetic, more tired. Sometimes he would cough in the middle of speaking to her. Mary felt no sympathy. She felt nothing at all. She had become numb to him. She continued doing what he wanted, continued collecting her evidence, continued waiting for the right moment to strike. But inside, a small part of her wondered, is he sick? And if he is, did I? She pushed the thought away. She couldn't think about that now. She had to focus on her plan. 2 months after Mary returned to the mansion, Madame Grace finally put her foot down. "Desmond, you're going to the doctor today," she announced one morning. "I don't care what you say. You've been sick for weeks and it's getting worse. I'm worried about you." "Grace, I told you I'm fine." "You're not fine." Grace's voice was sharp. "Look at yourself. You've lost 20 pounds. You can barely get through a day without needing to rest. You're coughing all the time. Something is wrong and we need to find out what it is." Mr. Desmond wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. He did feel terrible. And it was affecting his business, his reputation, his life. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll go to the doctor." "Today?" Grace insisted. "Yes, today." That afternoon, Mr. Desmond went to see his personal physician, Dr. Reynolds, at a private clinic. Dr. Reynolds was an old friend who treated many wealthy clients in the city. After examining Mr. Desmond and asking many questions about his symptoms, Dr. Reynolds looked concerned. "I'm going to run some tests," he said. "Blood work mainly. I want to check for everything: diabetes, liver function, thyroid issues, infections." "How long will it take?" "A few days. I'll call you as soon as I have the results." Mr. Desmond left the clinic feeling annoyed but also, secretly, a little worried. What if something was really wrong? Back at the mansion, life continued as usual. Mary cleaned, cooked, and went whenever Mr. Desmond called, which was less often now because he wasn't feeling well. One evening, Mary was in the kitchen with Patricia when they heard shouting from upstairs. It was Madame Grace's voice, loud and angry. "What is this, Desmond? What is this?" Patricia and Mary exchanged glances. They crept closer to the bottom of the staircase, listening. "Grace, calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. I found these messages on your phone. Messages to someone named Mary. Come to the hotel tomorrow. Wear the blue dress." "Who is Mary, Desmond?" Mary's heart stopped. She looked at Patricia with wide, frightened eyes. She's just an employee, Grace. Those messages are about work." "Work? Work?" Grace's voice was shaking with rage. "Do you think I'm stupid? I know what these messages mean. You're having an affair." "Grace, listen to me." "With who? Who is this Mary?" There was a long silence. Then Mr. Desmond's voice, quieter now. "The maid. She's the maid." Another silence. Then Grace screamed, "The maid? You're sleeping with our maid? In our house? Under my roof?" "Grace, please let me explain." "Explain? There's nothing to explain. You cheated on me with a servant. You've humiliated me. Disgraced me." More shouting followed. Things being thrown. A door slamming. Mary and Patricia ran back to the kitchen, their hearts pounding. "She knows?" Patricia whispered. "Oh God, she knows." Mary's hands were shaking. Everything was falling apart. Her careful plan, her evidence, her revenge. None of it mattered now because Madame Grace had discovered the affair on her own. "What do I do?" Mary asked, panic rising in her chest. "Run," Patricia said. "Get out of here before she comes looking for you." But it was too late. Madame Grace came storming into the kitchen, her face red with fury, her eyes blazing. She pointed a shaking finger at Mary. "You," she screamed. "You're the one. You're Mary." Mary took a step back. "Madam, please." "How dare you?" Grace advanced on her. "How dare you seduce my husband? You gold-digging little witch. You came into my house, pretended to be a humble worker, and then you seduced my husband for his money." "No," Mary cried. "That's not what happened. He forced me. He... Liar." Grace slapped Mary across the face hard. "Don't you dare lie to me. I know girls like you. Poor, desperate, willing to do anything for money. You saw a rich man and decided to trap him. That's not true." Mary was crying now. "He threatened me. He said if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd fire me. He forced himself on me. Stop lying." Grace slapped her again. "My husband would never do such a thing. You seduced him. You tempted him." Mr. Desmond appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking weak and pale. "Grace, please calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down." Grace turned to him. "How could you do this to me? How could you throw away our marriage for this? Nothing." She turned back to Mary with hatred in her eyes. "Get out. Get out of my house right now. You're fired." "But madam, please listen to me." "Out." Grace screamed. "Get out before I call the police and have you arrested for prostitution." Mary looked at Mr. Desmond, hoping he would say something, anything. But he just stood there, silent, letting his wife blame everything on Mary. Of course he did. He was protecting himself. protecting his reputation, letting Mary take all the blame. "You're a monster," Mary whispered, looking at him. "Both of you. You used me and now you're throwing me away like garbage. Get out." Grace screamed again. Mary stood there for one more moment, tears streaming down her face, her cheeks still burning from Grace's slaps. She wanted to scream, to tell them everything, to pull out her phone and play the recordings right there in the kitchen. But no, not yet. Not like this. She needed the right moment. She needed the right audience. "I'm going," Mary said quietly, her voice trembling. "But this isn't over." Grace laughed bitterly. "Oh, it's over, girl. You're nothing. You have nothing. And now you don't even have a job. Good luck surviving out there." Mary turned and walked out of the kitchen, past Patricia, who watched with sad, helpless eyes, past Mr. Desmond, who wouldn't even look at her, and up to her small room behind the mansion. She packed her few belongings into a worn bag, some clothes, her phone, her charger, and most importantly, the small notebook where she'd written down dates, times, and details of everything that had happened. Within 20 minutes she was gone. The next few days were the hardest of Mary's life. She had nowhere to go, no money saved because she'd sent everything back home to her siblings. She slept at a friend's house, a girl she'd met at church, and spent her days walking the streets, trying to figure out what to do next. Should she go to the police? Would they even believe her? She was just a poor maid accusing a wealthy, respected businessman. Who would take her side? Should she post the recordings online? But then what? She had no platform, no followers, no way to make people pay attention. She needed help. She needed someone who understood the law, someone who could guide her. On the third day after leaving the mansion, Mary made a decision. She would go to a legal aid office, a place she'd heard about at church that helped poor people who couldn't afford lawyers. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Mr. Desmond's phone rang. It was Dr. Reynolds. "Desmond," the doctor's voice was serious. "I need you to come to the clinic. Today. As soon as possible." Mr. Desmond felt his stomach drop. "What is it? What did you find?" "I'd rather discuss this in person." "Just tell me." There was a long pause. Then Dr. Reynolds said quietly, "The tests came back. Desmond, you're HIV positive." The phone slipped from Mr. Desmond's hand and clattered to the floor. He stood frozen in his study, unable to move, unable to think, unable to breathe. HIV positive. The words echoed in his mind over and over. HIV positive. No. No, this couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. He picked up the phone with shaking hands. "Are you sure? Could the test be wrong?" "We ran it twice," Dr. Reynolds said gently. "I'm sorry, Desmond. The results are conclusive. You need to come in so we can discuss treatment options and—" Mr. Desmond hung up. He sank into his leather chair, his mind racing. HIV. Oh, when? Where did he get it? And then, like a lightning bolt, the answer came to him. Mary. That dirty, diseased girl. She gave him HIV. She infected him deliberately. This was her revenge. Rage exploded through his body. His hands clenched into fists. His face turned red. That witch. That evil, vengeful witch. She knew she was sick and she deliberately infected him. This was attempted murder. He grabbed his phone and immediately called his lawyer. "I need you to press charges," he said the moment the lawyer answered. "Criminal charges. Against my former maid. Her name is Mary. She deliberately infected me with HIV. "Wait, slow down," the lawyer said. "What are you talking about?" "She has HIV," Mr. Desmond shouted. "And she had relations with me knowing she was infected. She wanted to give it to me. This is assault. This is biological warfare." Desmond calmed down. "Tell me exactly what happened." Mr. Desmond took a breath and began to explain, carefully leaving out the parts where he forced Mary, where he threatened her job, where he paid her to keep quiet. He painted himself as the victim and Mary as a calculated predator. The lawyer listened. "This is serious. If what you're saying is true, we can press charges. But Desmond, are you sure she knew she was positive? She must have known. How else would I get infected?" "Well," the lawyer hesitated. "There could be other explanations." "What other explanations? Have you been with anyone else?" Mr. Desmond's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." "It's relevant to the case, Desmond. If you want to accuse her of deliberately infecting you, we need to prove you could only have gotten it from her." Mr. Desmond was silent. The truth was there had been others. Many others over the years. But he couldn't admit that. Not to his lawyer, not to his wife, not to anyone. "It was her," he said firmly. "I know it was her. Find her and press charges." "All right," the lawyer said. I'll contact the police. 2 days later, Mary was sitting in the small legal aid office, explaining her situation to a young lawyer named Nancy, when the door burst open. 2 police officers walked in. Mary Augustine? One of them asked. Mary's heart stopped. Yes. You're under arrest for intentional transmission of HIV. Please stand up and come with us. Mary's world started spinning. What? No, I didn't. You have the right to remain silent, the officer continued, pulling out handcuffs. Nancy stood up quickly. Wait, officers, I'm her lawyer. What are the charges exactly? Mr. Desmond Cole has filed a complaint stating that this woman knowingly infected him with HIV during their relations. He's pressing criminal charges. Mary felt like she couldn't breathe. This was happening. This was really happening. But as the officers handcuffed her, as Nancy protested and demanded to see the warrant, as they led her out of the office and toward the police car, something inside Mary changed. The fear was still there. The panic was still there. But underneath it, something else rose up, something cold and hard and unbreakable. Let him press charges, she thought. Let him bring me to court. Because now, finally, she would have her moment. Now, finally, the whole world would hear the truth. Mary was taken to the police station in the back of the patrol car, her hands cuffed behind her back. Through the window, she could see people on the street stopping to stare, pointing, whispering. By the time they arrived at the station, her mind had cleared. The initial shock was fading, replaced by a strange, cold clarity. Nancy, the young lawyer from the legal aid office, arrived at the station 30 minutes later, carrying a briefcase and looking determined. I'm representing Miss Augustine, she told the desk sergeant. I need to speak with my client immediately. They were given a small, bare room with a metal table and 2 chairs. As soon as the door closed, Nancy leaned forward. Mary, listen to me carefully. This is serious. Very serious. If they can prove you knowingly infected him, you could go to prison for years. But if what you told me earlier is true, that he forced you, that he was your employer who abused his power, then we have a defense. A strong one. Mary nodded slowly. It's all true. Every word. Do you have proof? Mary looked up, and for the first time since her arrest, a small, grim smile crossed her face. Yes, I have proof. What kind of proof? Recordings. Text messages. Everything. Nancy's eyes widened. You recorded him? Yes. Every time he called me, every time he texted me, every conversation we had. I saved everything. Where are these recordings? On my phone. And backed up to my email account. Nancy sat back, processing this information. Mary, this changes everything. This could completely turn the case around. But we need to be strategic about how we use this evidence. We can't just play it for the police right now. Why not? Because Mr. Cole is a powerful man. He has money, influence, connections. If we show our hand too early, he'll find a way to discredit the evidence or claim it was manipulated. We need to save it for court, where there are rules, where everything is on record, where he can't just make it disappear. Mary felt a flicker of worry. But what if they don't let me out? What if I have to stay in jail until the trial? I'll do everything I can to get you bail, Nancy promised. But Mary, I need you to be honest with me about one thing. Your HIV status. When were you diagnosed? Mary looked down at her hands. 3 years ago. Before I even came to this city. And did you ever tell Mr. Cole about your status? Yes. Mary's voice was firm. I told him the very first time the very first time. I begged him to stop. I told him I was positive. He laughed at me. He said God made him untouchable. He said he wasn't afraid of any disease. Nancy was writing quickly in her notebook. And you have this conversation recorded? Yes. Good. That's very good. Nancy looked up. Mary, I know this is frightening. But I need you to trust me. We're going to fight this. And we're going to win. The news spread through the city like wildfire. By evening, it was all over social media. Millionaire businessman Desmond Cole infected with HIV by his maid. The headlines were brutal, sensational, and almost entirely one-sided. Gold-digging maid deliberately infected her rich boss. Poor woman uses disease as weapon against wealthy employer. HIV positive maid arrested for biological assault. At the mansion, Madame Grace sat in her bedroom, reading the news on her tablet, her hands trembling with a mixture of shock, anger, and humiliation. Her husband was HIV positive. Her husband had been sleeping with the maid. And now the whole world knew. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Friends calling to express shock, reporters asking for comments, business associates suddenly checking in to see how she was doing. She ignored them all. Downstairs, Mr. Desmond was on the phone with his lawyer again. "The media is making me look like the victim," he said with satisfaction. "That's good. That's what we need. Public sympathy." "Yes, but we still need to be careful," the lawyer cautioned. Her legal aid lawyer filed a response this afternoon. "They're claiming coercion, abuse of power, workplace harassment. They're going to paint you as the aggressor. That's absurd. Who's going to believe a poor maid over me?" "That's not the point, Desmond. The point is, do you have any evidence that contradicts her claims? Any witnesses? Any documentation?" Mr. Desmond hesitated. "She worked for me. That's documented. But the other aspects of our relationship were private." "Meaning there were no witnesses?" "Correct. And no written agreements or contracts about the nature of the relationship?" "Of course not. Why would I put something like that in writing?" The lawyer sighed. "That's going to be a problem. Because if she has any evidence at all, texts, calls, anything, it's going to be your word against hers, plus whatever she can produce." "She has nothing," Mr. Desmond said confidently. "She's a poor, uneducated girl. She probably doesn't even know how to save a text message." "Let's hope you're right." After hanging up, Mr. Desmond poured himself a drink and stood by the window of his study, looking out at the city lights. He felt certain he would win this case. He had money, power, the best lawyers. What did Mary have? Nothing but lies and desperation. But deep in his chest, there was a small, nagging feeling he couldn't quite shake. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, he had underestimated her. 3 days later, Mary appeared in court for her bail hearing. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, curious onlookers, even some of Mr. Desmond's business associates who had come to watch the spectacle. Mr. Desmond sat in the front row with his lawyer, dressed in an expensive suit, looking pale but dignified. Mary was brought in wearing a simple dress Nancy had brought for her. She looked small, tired, but her eyes were clear and focused. The judge, an older woman named Justice Williams, reviewed the case file with a stern expression. "This is a bail hearing for Miss Mary Augustine, charged with intentional transmission of HIV, she said. "The prosecution is arguing that the defendant poses a danger to society and should be held without bail until trial. The defense is arguing for bail to be granted. Let's hear from both sides." The prosecutor, a confident man in his 40s, stood up first. "Your Honor, this is a clear-cut case of biological assault. The defendant knowingly and deliberately engaged in intimate relations with Mr. Desmond Cole while being aware of her HIV-positive status," the prosecutor continued, his voice strong and authoritative. "She did not disclose this information to him, and as a result, Mr. Cole has now been infected with a life-threatening disease. This was not an accident, Your Honor. This was a calculated act of revenge by a disgruntled employee." He gestured toward Mr. Desmond, who sat with his head slightly bowed, playing the role of wounded victim perfectly. "Mr. Cole is a respected businessman, a philanthropist, a pillar of this community. He trusted Miss Augustine, employed her, gave her opportunities. And this is how she repaid him, by weaponizing a deadly disease. If we grant bail, what's to stop her from doing this to someone else? She has shown herself to be dangerous, vengeful, and completely without conscience." The prosecutor sat down looking satisfied. Nancy stood up slowly. She was young, probably only a few years out of law school, and she looked tiny compared to the expensive, experienced prosecutor. But her voice was steady. "Your Honor, the prosecution has presented a very dramatic story. But it's just that, a story. And it's not the true story." She opened her folder and pulled out several papers. "My client, Mary Augustine, is not a vengeful criminal. She is a victim. A victim of systematic abuse, coercion, and sexual harassment by her employer, Mr. Desmond Cole." A murmur went through the courtroom. Mr. Desmond's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, these are baseless accusations." "Let her finish," Justice Williams said firmly. Nancy continued. "Miss Augustine did disclose her status to Mr. Cole. In fact, she begged him to stop, to leave her alone, to use protection. But he refused. He threatened her job, her livelihood, her ability to support her family. He told her, and I quote, 'God made me untouchable. I'm not afraid of any disease.' These are lies," Mr. Desmond said, standing up suddenly. "Complete fabrications. Mr. Cole, sit down," the judge ordered. "You'll have your chance to speak at trial." Mr. Desmond sat, his face red with anger. Nancy looked directly at him as she spoke her next words. "And Miss Augustine has proof of everything I just said." The courtroom went completely silent. Mr. Desmond's face went pale. His lawyer leaned over and whispered urgently in his ear. Your Honor, Nancy continued, my client has recordings, text messages, and documentation of the entire relationship. She has evidence that proves Mr. Cole was the aggressor, not her. She has evidence that proves she disclosed her status and that he dismissed it. And most importantly, she has evidence that proves their relationship was not consensual, it was coerced through threats and abuse of power. Justice Williams looked at the prosecutor. Were you aware of this evidence? The prosecutor looked uncomfortable. Your Honor, we were not. Mr. Cole assured us. I want to see this evidence, the judge said. Both sides in my chambers now. 20 minutes later, they reconvened in the courtroom. Justice Williams's face was grave. She had listened to just one of Mary's recordings, the one where Mr. Desmond's voice clearly said he wasn't afraid of disease, the one where Mary could be heard crying and begging him to stop. Bail is granted, the judge announced. Miss Augustine will be released on her own recognizance, pending trial. Your Honor, the prosecutor protested. This is highly irregular. What's irregular? Justice Williams interrupted, her voice sharp. Is filing criminal charges without conducting a thorough investigation first. This case is far more complex than it initially appeared. Miss Augustine is free to go. Trial date will be set within 60 days. Court is adjourned. She banged her gavel. Mary felt her knees go weak with relief. Nancy put a steadying hand on her arm. As they left the courtroom, Mary glanced back at Mr. Desmond. He was staring at her with pure hatred in his eyes, his lawyer speaking urgently into his ear. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them immediately. Mary, did you deliberately infect Mr. Cole? Is it true you have recordings? Were you having an affair with your boss? Nancy held up her hand. My client will not be making any statements at this time. All questions will be answered at trial. Thank you. She guided Mary through the crowd to a waiting car. Once they were safely inside and driving away, Mary finally allowed herself to breathe. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now. Nancy looked at her. Now we prepare for war. Because Mr. Cole isn't going to let this go quietly. He's going to fight with everything he has. His reputation, his business, his marriage, everything is on the line now. He's going to come at us hard. I'm ready, Mary said softly. I've been ready. Good. Because we need to go through every piece of evidence you have. Every recording, every text, every detail. We need to build an airtight case. Mary nodded. There's something else you should know. What? Other women. There were other women before me. Other maids, other staff. Patricia, the cook at the mansion, she told me. She said Mr. Desmond has been doing this for years. We're not the first ones he's abused. Nancy's eyes widened. Do you think any of them would be willing to testify? I don't know. They're all scared of him. Scared of losing their jobs, scared of being blamed, scared of being called liars. We need to find them, Nancy said. We need to try. Because if we can show a pattern of behavior, if we can show that this wasn't just you, that he's done this before. It would prove I'm not lying, Mary finished. Exactly. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere was poisonous. Grace had stopped speaking to Desmond entirely. She moved into the guest bedroom and spent most of her time locked inside, crying or making angry phone calls to her family. Mr. Desmond stayed in his study, drinking heavily and obsessively reading every news article about the case. The media coverage was starting to shift. At first, it had been entirely sympathetic to him, the poor wealthy man infected by his vengeful maid. But now, after the bail hearing, after whispers of recordings, and evidence, and abuse of power, some journalists were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Was the relationship actually consensual? Millionaire boss accused of workplace sexual harassment. Mary Augustine's lawyer claims she has proof of abuse. His phone rang. It was his lawyer. Desmond, we need to talk. Seriously talk. Because this case just got a lot more complicated. Complicated? Mr. Desmond said bitterly. How much more complicated can it get? Very complicated, his lawyer replied. I've been doing some digging and I'm hearing rumors that other women are coming forward. Former employees. They're saying you did the same thing to them. Mr. Desmond's grip tightened on the phone. That's ridiculous. They're lying. They're just trying to get money out of me. Maybe. But if even one of them testifies, if even one of them has any shred of evidence, it corroborates Mary's story. It makes you look like a serial predator instead of a one-time mistake. So what do you want me to do? I want you to be honest with me. Right now. How many women have there been? Silence. Desmond? I don't know, he finally admitted. I don't keep count. 5, maybe 6 over the years. But they all wanted it. They all needed the money. It was transactional. His lawyer was quiet for a long moment. That's not how a jury is going to see it, Desmond. That's not how anyone is going to see it. Then make them see it differently. That's what I pay you for. I'm trying. But you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that we might lose this case. And if we lose, you're not just losing a lawsuit. You could be facing serious criminal charges. Sexual harassment, abuse of power, coercion. These are crimes, Desmond. I'm the victim here. Desmond shouted. I'm the one who's sick. I'm the one who's dying. That may be true. But that doesn't erase what you did to get sick. Over the next 6 weeks, Nancy worked tirelessly on Mary's case. She tracked down 3 of Mr. Desmond's former employees, 2 housekeepers and a personal assistant. All 3 agreed to testify, though they were terrified. One of them, a woman named Blessing, broke down crying when Nancy interviewed her. He did the same thing to me, she sobbed. Exactly the same. He threatened my job, he cornered me, he forced me. And when I tried to refuse, he said I was ungrateful, that I should be honored that a man like him wanted me. Will you tell this story in court? Nancy asked gently. Blessing nodded, wiping her tears. Yes. If it helps Mary, if it stops him from doing this to anyone else, yes. I'll testify. Meanwhile, Mary went through her phone and email accounts with Nancy, organizing every piece of evidence chronologically. There were dozens of recordings, hundreds of text messages, and detailed notes Mary had kept in a journal. In one recording, Mr. Desmond's voice was crystal clear. You think you have a choice? You work for me. Your entire life depends on me. If I want you, you say yes. That's how this works. In another, Mary could be heard crying, saying, Please, sir, I'm sick. I have HIV. You need to use protection. And Mr. Desmond laughing, God protects me. I'm not like other men. Disease can't touch me. The evidence was overwhelming. The trial began on a cold Monday morning. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity. News cameras lined the hallway outside. This had become the biggest case in the city, a story about power, privilege, abuse, and revenge that had captivated everyone. Mr. Desmond arrived in a wheelchair, looking frail and weak. His lawyer had clearly decided to play up his illness, to make him look sympathetic. Mary arrived in a simple dress, her head held high, flanked by Nancy. Justice Williams presided again. She looked at both sides sternly. This trial will be conducted with dignity and respect, she announced. I will not tolerate theatrics, I will not tolerate outbursts, and I will not tolerate any attempts to manipulate this court. We are here to find the truth. Nothing more, nothing less. The prosecution went first, presenting their case that Mary had deliberately infected Mr. Desmond. But when Nancy's turn came, everything changed. She called Mary to the stand first. Mary's testimony was quiet, steady, and devastating. She described how Mr. Desmond had started harassing her within weeks of hiring her. How he had cornered her in hallways, touched her inappropriately, made crude comments. How he had eventually forced himself on her, threatening to fire her if she refused. And did you tell Mr. Cole about your HIV status? Nancy asked. Yes, Mary said firmly. The very first time. I begged him to stop. I told him I was positive. I told him he needed protection. And what did he say? He laughed at me. He said God made him untouchable. Do you have proof of this conversation? Yes. Nancy played the recording. The entire courtroom heard Mr. Desmond's voice, arrogant and dismissive, saying the exact words Mary had described. The jury's faces changed. Several of them looked disgusted. Next, Nancy called Blessing to the stand. Blessing testified that Mr. Desmond had done the same thing to her 3 years earlier. The threats, the coercion, the abuse of power. Then the second housekeeper testified. Then the personal assistant. Each story was nearly identical. A pattern of predatory behavior spanning years. By the time Nancy rested her case, Mr. Desmond's defense had crumbled. His lawyer tried to argue that the relationships were consensual, that the women were lying for money, that Mary had deliberately withheld information about her status. But none of it mattered. The evidence was too strong. The pattern too clear. When the prosecutor called for a recess to review the charges, everyone in the courtroom knew what was happening. The state was preparing to add additional criminal charges against Mr. Desmond. 2 days later, the charges were amended. Mr. Desmond was no longer just defending himself in a civil case about HIV transmission. He was now facing criminal charges. Multiple counts of sexual harassment, coercion, abuse of power, and workplace sexual assault. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood and read the verdict, guilty on all counts. Mr. Desmond's face went white. His lawyer closed his eyes. Grace, sitting in the gallery, stood up and walked out without looking back. Justice Williams called for sentencing arguments immediately. The prosecution requested the maximum penalty, citing the severity of the crimes, the number of victims, and Mr. Desmond's complete lack of remorse. His lawyer pleaded for leniency, mentioning his client's illness, his contributions to society, his age. Justice Williams listened to both sides. Then she spoke. Mr. Cole, you were given power, wealth, and privilege. And you used all of it to prey on vulnerable women who depended on you for their livelihoods. You abused your position systematically and without conscience. You showed no mercy to your victims, and you show no remorse even now. She paused, looking directly at him. This court sentences you to 20 years in prison for sexual harassment, coercion, and abuse of power. You will serve this sentence without possibility of parole for the first 10 years. She banged her gavel. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. Mr. Desmond slumped in his wheelchair, his face buried in his hands. Mary sat perfectly still, tears streaming silently down her face. It was over. Finally it was over. Outside the courthouse, Nancy put her arm around Mary's shoulders as they walked through the crowd of cameras and microphones. Mary, how do you feel about the verdict? Mary, what's next for you? Mary, do you forgive Mr. Cole? Mary stopped walking. She turned to face the cameras, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. I didn't want revenge, she said. I wanted justice. I wanted the truth to come out. I wanted other women to know they don't have to suffer in silence. She paused, gathering her thoughts. What happened to me happened because someone with power thought he could take whatever he wanted. But power doesn't make you untouchable. Money doesn't make you above the law. And silence doesn't last forever. She looked directly into the nearest camera. If you're suffering, if someone is abusing their power over you, speak up. Find help. Don't suffer alone. Because the truth always finds a way to the light. Then she turned and walked away, leaving the reporters behind, walking toward whatever came next, toward healing, toward peace, toward a future she had fought so hard to claim. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.